Here's a couple shorter stories that can't be made into very detailed stories. I once saw a deer mother bite one of her fawns by the head and start shaking it violently until its neck snapped. She then dropped it to the ground and nudged it a couple of times, as if she didn't quite understand what she had done. Didn't stay to observe because I was a bit freaked out. One time I found a dead deer lying next to a tree. Markings on the tree coupled with markings on the deer's head suggested it had rammed its head into the tree until it died. Took a blood sample. Completely healthy. Another time I stumbled upon a fresh kill in the winter. A deer with half its face and neck missing. A large hole in its abdomen with guts hanging out. As I poked the wound, in order to check the temperature, the freaking thing lets out a yelp and rises to its feet. I'm in complete disbelief. This bloody mess turns its head to look at me and starts walking away calmly. Collapses after about 10 meters and doesn't get back up. There was an American story where this guy and his dad go to hunt and see a deer smash its head on a rock and start licking its brains. Why is it always deer? Maybe they're easier to be possessed by whatever the heck was doing that to them. This will be the last from me for now. I am pretty tired and it's exhausting to relive all these horrible memories. I may post more tomorrow, but for now I will leave you with this one. I had been seeing a girl for a couple of weeks. For some reason she thought my job was hot and thought I was some sort of macho dude. Went along with it because she was hot. She also hooked Pietr up with one of her friends. She lived in one of the fancier houses in town with a nice view of the forest from their living room. We decided to have a date at her house where we would watch a movie and eat dinner. Of course it didn't take long before Pietr went to the guest room with this girl. I decided to not waste time either and got a little spicy. At this point, I admit, I neglected my duties a bit. Pietr hadn't even been to the forest that month, and I hadn't responded to any calls regarding sick animals or poachers. We had gotten caught up in our own personal lives. It honestly felt nice to get a break from the work, seeing as we weren't technically ever off duty. We fell asleep on the couch in the living room. At some point during the night I woke up. It was a beautiful, starry night. Walked up to the glass door leading to the terrace, in order to get a better view of the sky. After a few minutes, I spot something in the distance. The faint glow of eyes hine, from something staring intensely at me. I froze in place and observed this unknown creature as it slowly started walking towards me. When it got within the light emanating from the house, it revealed itself to be a medium-sized stag. It just kept walking towards me, never blinking or taking its eyes off me. It walked directly into the glass, which seemed to puzzle it. It started nudging the glass, which turned into violent pushing. At this point I started backing away, still in complete disbelief at what was transpiring in front of me. Girlfriend wakes up due to loud banging on the glass. What the heck is going on? She asks, still half asleep. Before I can answer her, the stag starts letting out these guttural screams, as it intensifies its ramming. It breaks through the glass. Girlfriend screams and Pietr comes down the stairs to see what's going on. The stag just calmly walks up to me as though it hadn't just broken through a glass door. Keeps letting out those horrible noises as it just approaches me. I tried backing up but I stepped on some glass and fell over on my butt. The stag just observed me with unflinching eyes as it kept bellowing. Girlfriend was still screaming. I'm suddenly defined by the sound of Pietr unloading his small sidearm. Hit the stag multiple times, but mainly missed, leading to a lot of property damage. The stag falls to the floor with a wet thud. To this day I am still grateful for Pietr for bringing his gun. Girlfriend broke up with me the next day. She said that I was either cursed, or unlucky, either way she didn't want anything to do with me. I still always sleep with my blinds on. I never want to see another window at night, especially when I know what might be on the other side of that glass. I may have ignored the forest, but it clearly didn't ignore me. I have returned. I will share a couple more stories with you. I once found myself lost with Pietr in a snowstorm. We were basically as frigid as we could ever be, with no shelter or any way to start a fire. Snow was falling so densely that we couldn't see more than a few meters in front of us. Wind was so cold that my lips started bleeding. We drove around for what felt like an eternity, until we came upon an old decrepit hunting cabin. We had difficulty dismounting our ATVs because our clothes were frozen solid. I still remember how Pietr was shaking and clacking his teeth. The cabin was completely empty, but it had a fireplace and some semi-dry wood. As we sat there, slowly warming up by the fire, we had a moment of absolute dread when we realized we might actually frickin' die. We had no idea how long the storm would last, and there wasn't a whole lot of wood for us to burn. Pietr rose to his feet and muttered, "Screw it. Wait here anon." He went outside, and returned a few minutes later with an axe. For a brief second I legitimately wondered if he was going to put me out of my misery. To my relief, he started beating the ever-loving crap out of the floorboards. "Use this as firewood. It should keep the fire going a while longer," he said. "Bless you, Pietr, and your demented brain." In the end we probably burned about half the cabin's floor, which revealed more and more of the cold dirt underneath. And of hecking course there happened to be the remains of a couple people down there. We were waiting out the storm, stuck in a frickin' murder cabin. The remains looked very old, fortunately, just dusty skeletal remains. Seriously debated whether we should leave or stay. Decided to stay, because we'd have a better chance of survival against a psycho Russian killer than the storm. At one point I swear we heard someone approaching the cabin, only to run away into the wilderness. Makes no sense, because only mentally deranged mongoloid would have the balls to wander around out there. Then again, we were in a cabin with corpses under the floorboards. We sat with our rifles ready, just in case. After a long while, the storm started winding down. We emerged from the cabin, dug our ATVs out of the snow, and made our way back into town. Navigating was a lot easier now that we could see where we were going. Immediately went to the police station. They were surprised to see us, since they had reported us missing/dead. We told them about the cabin, and agreed to show them the way next day. I slept for about 14 hours, after soaking in a tub full of water, best sleep I'd ever had. We met up with the officers and led them through the forest to the cabin. It was fudging gone. There was no trace of it to be found whatsoever. The trails left behind from our ATVs were still very clear, and even the spot where we dug them out. But the cabin was just not there. There was a clear area where it had been, but there was nothing but a fresh layer of snow. The officers looked irritated, and said that we were wasting their time. They said that we must have been hallucinating, or that we drank too much of Pietr's home brew. It still makes no sense to me. We never found an explanation. Pietr and I had been on one of our excursions in early autumn when we came across a panicked hunter. He begged us to help his friend who had been attacked further up the trail. He drove with us up to where the incident had occurred, but it was already too late. His friend was screwed beyond belief, face ripped off, gutted, and limbs in unnatural positions. Almost threw up at the sight. We decided that this bear was too dangerous to be left alive, since it was roaming fairly close to town. We started looking for tracks to get an idea of where it was headed. The hunter was just sitting up against a tree, too shocked to react to what was going on. He kept describing the creature as a bear when we asked him. The thing is, we only found bear tracks at the scene. Against our better judgment, we started tracking the fracker. I swear there was a constant stream of cold sweat running down my back while we hunted this mother lover. I would honestly have preferred to hunt a bear at this point. We reached a clearing at some point, where we found a piece of the guy's face hanging from a thorny bush. We were crapping enough bricks to fill the Berlin Wall at this point. We finally caught sight of the hecker. It wandered aimlessly around in circles, almost like its internal compass was screwing up. This time, I was the one who shot it. Couldn't let Pietr have all the fun. Hit it in the head. Instant death. Chunks of flesh were still hanging from its antlers. We had to collect individual pieces, and put them in a plastic bag, so that we could deliver it to the morgue with the rest of the body. We gagged as we did it, it was so freaking horrible. Ended driving the shocked hunter back with us, so that he could deliver his testimony. "Why did you tell us it was a bear?" Pietr asked him. "You would have never believed me," he answered. "If only you knew my guy." Pietr and I were hanging out in his apartment one night, sharing stories and drinking. Sat out on his small balcony, and smoked when we got a call from the police station. There had been strange sightings of a large animal, presumably a bear, roaming the area. Some locals were pretty spooked and had reported it to the police. Of course it fell under our jurisdiction. We decided that we would check it out in the morning. We didn't feel like chasing some large, unidentified creature, while we were half drunk and the sun had gone down. Sit a few more minutes, just chatting, when suddenly a deafening screeching sound echoed from beyond the tree line. We were silent for a couple of minutes. "Frick me, that was loud," Pietr said. "No dip, Sherlock." We decided to check it out. Operation Half-Drunk Russians Packing Heat commenced. We wandered around aimlessly, randomly pointing our flashlights and rifles around in the dark. "You've got to be freaking kidding me," Pietr shouted. He had found large cloven footprints. "Don't tell me this is another deer, I swear to God." He sounded both angry and horrified. A rustling sound came from behind us. We both instantly turn and aim at the sound. Two glowing eyes reflected our flashlights. It lets out a loud squeal and charges at us. We both lighted the heck up as we crap our pants. It's a boar. A frickin' boar. But it was so freaking big that we initially thought it was a bear. Pig related is eerily similar to the bad boy we shot. "At least it wasn't a frickin' deer," I said. Pietr let out a nervous laugh and shook his head in awe of the massive beast lying before us. Honestly didn't know what to do with it. We hadn't brought our ATVs and the thing was too heavy to carry. Decided to just leave it for wolves to scavenge. Police actually believed us this time. "Some of the hogs out there can grow to enormous sizes, you're lucky it didn't get you," they had said. "Another thing to worry about, flipping fantastic." So most people don't know this, but there are loads of unmapped or unexplored cave systems all around Russia. This is also the case for where I lived. It wasn't too uncommon for Pietr and I to stumble upon a cave or two while we were on our excursions. Lots of local legends surround the caves, like an underground city of subterranean people, covens of witches, prehistoric animals, and so on. Whatever the case, I've always found the cave systems fascinating. It's like entering a new world, where the same rules don't apply. So when the police mounted a rescue team to help a teenager who had gotten trapped in one of our caves, I didn't hesitate to volunteer. At this point, Pietr and I were respected and well liked by the police. They trusted us and included us in some of their work. Pietr didn't come along this time because he was too hungover. As the case stood, two teenage boys had tried to explore a local cave system that had some very deep drop-offs. One of the boys had lost his footing, and tumbled down into the darkness. He was still alive, but he had broken his ankle and couldn't get out. Rather than getting stuck himself, his friend went to get help. We made our way through the cave, making sure to watch our steps. The cave floor was damp and covered in algae, so it wasn't a surprise that the boy had slipped. When we came to the drop-off, we shone our lights down at him. He waved and smiled, knowing he was saved. I started descending the steep rock wall, with the rope tied to my waist. When I reached the bottom, I secured the boy to the rope, and gave the officers the signal to start pulling him up.
He went that way,
the boy said to me, and pointed to a narrow passageway at the back of the cave. Excuse me? I asked, wondering if he hit his head on the way down.
My friend came back for me and told me he had found an exit that way.
I was confused, but I told him your friend is up there with the others. His face went completely pale on the spot.
But he was down here with me. He went that way.
An uneasy feeling hit me, which I tried to ignore. Now I was stuck at the bottom of this small chasm until they threw down the rope again. And this kid claims that someone was down here with him, even though his friend had gone straight to the police. I felt very exposed, and kept focusing on the narrow passage at the back of the cave. I point my flashlight to the ground, and freaking footprints leading into the passage. It's hecking bare feet. Frick 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 frick. Just as I am unloading a metric frick ton of bricks, they throw the end of the rope down, and hit me right on my shoulder. I let out a shriek of horror that those dumbos never let me lie down. As they pulled me up, I refused to look back down. Got the heck out of there as fast as possible. Frick whatever was down there. One of our biggest problems with poachers was that they would sometimes leave behind these heavy-duty rusty bear traps. Pick related for reference. Sometimes they never came back for them, which meant some parts of the forest could potentially be a minefield of broken ankles. We would occasionally find rotting carcasses that had become trapped in one, left to die. I once almost stepped in one, but Pietr noticed the chain in time to stop me. Thanks again, buddy. One time we came across one of these traps which had been sprung. Left in the trap was a boot, with the foot still attached. The rest of the body was gone. Large pool of blood left behind, along with body pieces of fabric. From what we could see, it looked like someone got stuck, and then had his foot amputated. We followed the blood trail, but found no body. He must have been with a friend, who drove him out of there. The ironic part is that bear traps are fairly easy to break out of, you just have to know which pin to pull. Poor guy lost his foot because of some Dumbo poacher. Took the foot with us and asked around in the police station. They hadn't had any reports of people getting screwed by bear traps. This guy didn't even go to a hospital. This meant he had either been a poacher himself, or just one tough son of a gun. Never found him or heard about him since then. Still, finding a severed foot is never nice, especially when you know the type of crap that's out there.
Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed this program. I may have to fix my telemetry caster soon, it seems to be running down. Shouldn't take too much work, there's plenty of excess computer parts around here. Make sure to follow me by clicking that button that reads subscribe, and don't worry. It's free. I'm not stingy on my money like some bigger companies I can think of are. Hope to see you next time I cast.